Welcome to my messy workshop. In today's video I'm going to show you how to make a super simple jig. Honestly, can't get any easier than this, to allow you to make finger joinery just like that, accurate, nice, simple and easy. I think this method is definitely one I can recommend, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back a few steps and I'll see you at the beginning of this journey. It's a fairly simple jig and you're gonna need some scrap wood that you probably already have in your workshop lying about. So the main parts that we're gonna need, I'm just gonna be using some plywood. In this case it's 10mm plywood, and I've got this chunky piece of pine as well. Now it's important for that to be fairly chunky, so this one is 3.5 centimeters by 4 centimeters, and you do want to have something of those dimensions. So first of all, let's cut this to the right size. We're going to need two pieces. In my case I'm going for 23 centimeters long, and as I said, this piece is 4 centimeters by 3.5 centimeters, so you do have a nice and solid clamping space. The plywood pieces, we're going to need two that are 26 centimeters long and 6 centimeters wide. And at the same time I'm cutting two strips from 5mm plywood that will be 16mm wide. Essentially these 16mm strips will be our guides, okay? That's how wide the fingers will actually be. So what you need to do, I've got those two blocks more or less selected the middle, and now I'm gonna glue in and secure these two pieces like so on both sides, okay, making sure that the distance between them is exactly that much. Okay, and for this I'm just going to be using some CA glue, wood glue and a couple of screws as well. Now we need to install the second piece. However, this time I'm actually going to use this spacer to make sure everything is nice and accurate. Right then, so we're going to need two strips of that 5mm plywood, and in my case they need to be cut to 17.9 centimeters so they fit in this gap over here. One of them will be our guide, and the second one is just a spacer that we're going to use to actually attach the first piece, but later on we'll actually need it for cutting fingers on part B. Okay, so it's a crucial part of the jig. Now the location of this needs to be on the left hand side, okay, so I'm just going to mark this up, left, okay, as we are cutting from the left hand side, always from left to right. And as you look at this, that piece needs to be, as you flip it over, on the right hand side, okay, so don't make an error and don't put it on the left. Make sure in this case, as you flip it over, it's on the right hand side. And to attach this, I'm just going to be using, as I said, the spacer to make sure it's in the right distance, and some wood glue and CA glue. And that's it. Our jig is essentially done. I'm just going to give a light sand to all the edges so there's no hard edges. And you can apply a bit of finish to it, preferably wax for easy movement. And don't forget about the spacer. It's part of the jig. Alright, and now it's time to test our jig. So I've got 4 pieces of timber selected, okay. One is going to be part A, and the other one's going to be part B. Okay, it's important to mark your pieces so you know exactly where you are, as part B will be cut a little bit different. We're going to use the spacer. Now make sure that both of the pieces, okay, both of them will be part A's, are nicely sandwiched together, and they're nice and flush. Use your square, make sure everything is nice and accurate, and clamp them together. You can use a vise if you want to, you know, whichever way you want to clamp this down so you've got easy access to the tops of your boards. Make sure that your markings are facing you. And how to use the jig? Well, we've got that spacer here that needs to go against the edge from the left hand side, okay. That's our stop block as well, and we need to clamp this down, Okay, so everything's nice and stable. And in my router, that's the bit I'm going to be using, 12mm guide bit. Now initially the first pass that we're going to do, actually we're going to create a channel in that piece in our jig itself. Okay, so that will give us a bit of space later on for easy access for the remaining cuts. And there you go, our first channel is now cut. So I'm going to unlock the clamp, and now that spacer goes in that first spot, just like so. We're going to clamp the jig again and make another cut. And there you go. In that way, we've got our fingers already cut out. Now we're going to flip this over and do the other side. And still, that letter A that we've marked needs to be facing us. Make sure everything's nice and flush again, clamp everything down and make the cut again. As you can see, creating those fingers is absolutely a doddle with that super simple jig. However, we need to go a little bit deeper. This is deep enough for me to actually reference with my router bit the teeth that we already have, and I need to go a little bit deeper. How deep? Well, as deep as the thickness of the material is. So I'm going to set that up right now. Simply put your router on top of that piece, release it, lower it down until it touches the other piece, lock it down, and that's how deep we need to go. Now, to avoid a terrible tearite like I had just a second ago, you can put a sacrificial piece over here to hold the fibers in place. And if that was a project I was working on, that's exactly what I would do. I would add a sacrificial piece from the side, but also another one from the back as I do the routing to prevent any blowout and any tear out. Now I'm going to establish the same thing on the other side of these boards, and then we'll move on to boards marked with B. And again, making sure that the sign that we did, okay, part B, is facing us every time, okay, as we do the top, and as we flip it upside down, that needs to be facing us. Now, there is a bit of a difference with the process for part B. Mainly, we now going to be using this offcut that we had before, which is the same size as this piece. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to put that against our workpiece and then put this against it as well. Okay, so that will be the reference point for us now. So make sure that stays like this. Clamp it down, make sure it's nice and snug. You can remove that, and that's our piece that we need to cut out. And now that piece without the spacer will be resting on our new edge just over here, just like so. Clamp it up and continue with cutting out the rest of the teeth. And that's it. How quick and easy is that? Now I'm just gonna go with the correct depth, and I'm gonna do the other side in the same exact way. Alrighty then, so we've got part B's, we've got part A's. Let's put them together and see if they actually do come together and what's the fit like, okay? And to be absolutely honest with you, I think the fit will be absolutely brilliant. And as you can see, the box came together absolutely fine, no issues at all. And what I actually do like about this method and this jig, first of all, the jig is super easy to make. Second of all, you can make the fingers as wide or as narrow as you want, okay? I went with 16 millimeters, but you can do anything you want. There is actually a tiny amount of wiggle room between the fingers, and that's important because you do want to glue this up, okay? In the past I've actually used different types of jigs and ways of cutting out the fingers for my boxes, and to be absolutely honest with you, 90% of the time they were so tight it was very hard to put them together. And that meant two things. It was very hard to put them together. Sometimes the end tooth just broke off because of the pressure I was trying to put the box together. And then you can absolutely forget about any glue, as nothing will get inside of that joint because it's so tight. And in my opinion, for the finger joints, you do need that bit of a wiggle room, but not only for the glue, but to square up your box. With other ways of cutting the fingers where the whole joint is super tight, you've got no chance of squaring that out. And if there are any tiny inconsistencies, well, your box is not going to be square. Whereas with this, you're not going to have that issue. It's nice and flush at the top and at the bottom between joints, and that's what you want. And you can't actually see those gaps, okay? If when you fill them with glue, sand it off, it will be a nice and perfect joint. But still, it gives you that bit of a leeway to actually square out your box. And to be fair, this is definitely by far my favorite jig when it comes to cutting out finger joinery. Super simple to make, super easy to use, and it just gives brilliant results. Exactly what I wanted. And yeah, sure, you need to be quite accurate as you are putting this jig together, as if you're gonna do any inconsistencies, any errors within the jig itself, then those errors will be multiplied in the end result. However, it's so simple to make. From scrap wood you've got lying about in your workshop, that even if you do make a mistake, you can quite easily make another jig in no time. And probably this will take you about 20, maybe half an hour top. At this point, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to my Patreons for the ongoing support. If you want to join my Patreons and support me as well, there's a link down below in the description of this video. Go have a look and check it out. If you did enjoy today's video, well, drop me that like button down below, share it with your family and friends, and if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. However, for today, that's all. But before you go, check out these two very cool playlists. Plenty of videos already there. Click on those and maybe you'll find your next video to watch. That's it for today. Take care.